I'm Nina Easton. I'm chair of Fortune Most Powerful Women International, and I'm also a partner at SellersEaston Media with Patty Sellers, who you just saw here on stage. We have a really incredible panel here because we're going to take this discussion to a whole different new level. But before we do that, we have a incredibly important announcement from Ellyn Shook.
Yeah, so every once in a while when you get to take the mic, you get to do something a little bit unexpected. And there's a special person in this room who really does an enormous amount of work to pull this whole thing off. And it happens to be her birthday tomorrow. So one verse of happy birthday to our very own Stacey Jones. Ready? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Stacey. Happy birthday to you. Thank you.
So I've had the honor to be able to work with Accenture over the past many months, and I have to say, not only is it an innovative, cutting-edge company, but you've got heart. That was fantastic. You've heard a lot about embracing the new, networking in the new, and we're going to do advancing in the new. And the backdrop of this is something that you really can't ignore, which is that we are in this digital revolution, which, by the way, is moving into a new kind of technological revolution. And you've got to be prepared for that as a leader, whether you're a woman, man, anybody. You've got to be prepared for that. So we're going to drill down a bit on how to be prepared and how to continue advancing your career in the new. We, of course, have Ellyn. Next to Ellyn is Shailee Samar. Did I say Samar right? Correct?
Samar, yes.
Samar, sorry. Shailee is a student body president at Harvey Mudd College, which you're going to hear a lot about. Speaking of Harvey Mudd, Maria has her Harvey Mudd t-shirt on. Maria Klawe is, if you don't already know her, she's the president of this extraordinary institution, which we are going to learn a lot more about. Caroline Ghosn is the founder and CEO of Levo, which is a mentorship program, which again, you're going to learn a lot more about in these few minutes that we have. Maria, I want to start with you because you have really overseen and created disruptive change at Harvey Mudd. You went from, what was it, like 15% of women graduating in STEM, or 15% of graduates being women in STEM, to now 55%, and that was only in 10 years. How did you do that? And secondly, what is being muddish all about?
Okay, let me start with being muddish. Being muddish means that, first of all, you strive to do really great work, but you're also really humble, and that you feel like it is your responsibility to help every other person succeed. And also, you should be able to talk well and write well and know a ton of math, physics, computer science, biology, chemistry, as well as social sciences, humanities, and the arts, and be prepared to lead your field with a clear understanding of the impact of your work on society. Plus, you should ride a skateboard or freeliners or... Okay, that's muddish. Okay. Harvey Mudd. So Harvey Mudd is a tiny college with about 820 students. It's one of the Claremont colleges, and it is a STEM college. Our majors are in science and engineering, but our students also take a ton of social sciences, humanities, and the arts. And we were at about 10% women majoring in computer science when I arrived a decade ago. And last year, our computer science graduates were 55% female. And thank you. And our physics majors were graduating last year were more than 50% female. And the year before, the graduates in engineering were 56% female. So this is, and we were, even though we're co-ed from our founding in 1955, we were largely a white male institution in terms of our faculty and our students for the first, I would say, 40 years. So this change happened not because I'm president. Yes, I'd love to get all the credit for it. It happened because we did some strategic planning when I arrived as president, and we ended up, as one of our 6 themes for our strategic vision, saying unsurpassed excellence and diversity at all levels. And the entire institution, the students, the faculty, the staff, the alumni, the board, have been pushing on this idea that we should make science and engineering disciplines that embrace everyone, welcome everyone, so that it doesn't matter whether you're male or female or white or brown or black or gay or lesbian, it should be a place that you belong. And, excuse me, what I have to say is that 10 years is actually a very short time for the kind of transition we've seen in our student body and our faculty. And it took everyone working on it. So I will leave it there for the moment. I mean, it took changing our curriculum, putting more help in place, changing the way we give prizes, changing who speaks at the college, changing, basically educating all of our communities on diversity and inclusion, educating our search committees. But I can truly say that we've gone from being 31% female to about 50% female in the student body, about 30% female in the faculty to about 40% female, and about 2% African American to 10% in our incoming classes, and 5% Hispanic to 20% Hispanic. So it's a ride. It's hard work. It's super exciting.
And Maria, you talk a lot about the environment, changing the environment, which is something that big companies should learn from. But Shailee, first of all, I want Shailee to know that not every intern at Accenture, which is what you're going to be this summer, gets this kind of introduction. So enjoy it while you can.
I am.
So take us down, what Maria was talking about, take us down on the ground at Harvey Mudd, the kinds of subjects that you're studying as a computer science major, what drew you to Harvey Mudd, and how you're muddish.
Sure. I guess I would start by saying, as we're all talking to students and to young women, we're trying to tell us that we should be able to solve these global problems, right? But in order to be able to solve these issues, to change the world, impact the world, disrupt the world, we need to understand the world in the first place. We need to experience the world. And I think that Harvey Mudd is really trying to help us do that, where we would experience the world through 2 aspects. One is just through the knowledge and the curriculum, but the other one is through the perspectives. So first with the curriculum, being muddish means that this semester I'm taking courses in software development, algorithms, artificial intelligence. But I'm also taking philosophy, contemporary moral problems, and learning about the Cold War. And it's all of this that helps us understand this is the world that we came from. Now here are the tools in which you can solve it. And if you actually use those tools, this is the impact you're going to have on society. These are the ethical implications you need to consider. So I think with all of that, I'm just starting to grow a much more global perspective, and that's what I'm trying to do more over the next year. And so that was the first portion, which is the curriculum. And the second part is all of the perspectives. I've grown up in Silicon Valley, which means, we always dream big. It doesn't matter who you are, where you're coming from, you dream big. Maybe you dream a little too much sometimes. Yeah. But we always dream big. And so when I came to Mudd, it seems normal to me that we should have half women, half men. It feels weird that we wouldn't have this gender parity. And so now it's when I leave Mudd and I talk to my friends in other colleges or I go intern, is where I start really feeling the difference and just want to tell them, you're really missing out. You don't know how good it can get. So this experience of being able to talk to all these different individuals has definitely changed my mindset. It's made me reconsider my values and my perspectives. I think one of the issues when we're doing problem solving is sometimes we think that the status quo is the good, right? And we need to fix things because they're not the way they necessarily should be. But I think another issue ends up happening when we end up starting with the same assumptions that we had in the beginning. And then we just keep on working on those solutions, but they're not becoming too different. And I think in order to fix that is where we end up getting this diversity of thought. So it's not only diversity of background in terms of demographics, but a lot of it's diversity in thought, which we've just seen over the past few months. It doesn't work if we're stuck in an echo chamber.
Yeah.
Really getting out of that.
And it's interesting when you look at, there's a study done looking at the qualities that are needed for the workforce in 2015 versus 2020. So, things like collaboration have grown in importance, things like creativity, things like communication, Ellyn. You're in charge of the health and well-being of some almost 400,000 people around the globe. Talk about how you were mentored by Maria to do this, to come in, disrupt, and to make Accenture partly through recruiting women, become a more forward-looking company.
Absolutely. First of all, say hello to your mom and dad on Facebook Live, so we don't forget.
There's a lot of
ties
right
going on here.
Okay. All right. Well, I've been in my role now for 3 years and 1 week. And in week 1 of my role, so 3 years ago, I was invited to my first, what's called HR 50. And HR 50 is a network, and it's a Chatham House rule environment where you can have a lot of frank conversation. And so I can't say exactly what went on there because it is Chatham House rule, but suffice it to say, Maria was one of the discussion leaders in my very first week as CHRO, and she shared in much more detail the Harvey Mudd story on the transformation of the face of the student body. And I was riveted and completely inspired because I have been going to Accenture board meetings since we've been a public company, and every year I would hear the presentation on diversity. I wasn't in the role, so I wasn't giving it, but every year the presentation on diversity went something like this. We're really committed to gender diversity at Accenture, and the progress is glacial. And it was like nails on the chalkboard for me. But what Maria did was give me very practical steps, very practical things that we could do in an organization like Accenture to help change the face of Accenture. And so we set off to do that. We set off to hire more women. We set a very ambitious goal that by the end of FY17, which is the year we're in now, we would hire 40% women a year. Well, at the end of FY16, we exceeded that, and it was thanks to Maria, because it wasn't really about working harder and doing what we were doing better. It was about the disruption. How do we disrupt what we've been doing for decades to get a different outcome? And so we went off into India and said, we are not only going to hire women into engineering roles, we set out the aspiration to be the employer of choice for women engineers in India. And lo and behold, our results are amazing. And I was so fortunate to be there this September to celebrate a start class of over 1,000 women engineers on one day. That's incredible. Yeah. So it's about disruption, and it's about, really understanding what you've been doing all along and what you need to break to really, accelerate change and accelerate your outcomes.
And so, Caroline, one of the things that doesn't change in any of this is the need for mentorship. Tell us about your sort of terrifying feeling going into the workplace and why that was, and how a mentor helped you to not only start your career, but find a mission.
Sure. So I always believe that entrepreneurs start companies for one of two reasons. So reason one is they've had significant experience in a field, and they sort of look at it top down and say, there's this piece missing, let me go make that. So it's this very methodical top-down approach. And the other reason that people start companies is because they feel a pain point themselves, and in looking for a solution, they realize there isn't one. And they end up becoming so passionate about solving that specific issue that they set out to do it themselves. And the story with Levo was very much the second for me. So Levo is now the largest professional network for millennials, and mentorship is at the core of what we offer because we believe that mentorship is the distinguishing factor in success. And the research has demonstrated that if you take two people and they have the same level of ambition and they have the same level of education, their access to mentors and to mentorship, which we'll talk about, that doesn't necessarily mean it's one person, is the most important predictor of their inflection curve in their career, is the most important predictor of their ability to have opportunities, their ability to believe in themselves, and their ability to negotiate and advocate on their own behalf throughout their career. And those first 10 to 15 years are particularly important because that's the basis on which your, first of all, salary is going to be set for most of the rest of your life. So we have National Equal Pay Day coming up in April, and this is a topic that's really, really important to us. How do we make sure that people are negotiating in their very first job? Because that's going to become the basis for all of your future negotiations, right? So there's this entire framework that we have around mentorship and how critical it is, but mentorship not just being that one fairy job mother or knight in shining armor that you find and that you click with, because statistically speaking, only 7% of people ever find someone like that. And the point of me telling you that number is not to put a negative energy onto the panel, but instead to say, well, we need to use technology to democratize mentorship and scale it beyond what's possible organically with people just meeting each other. Because if we just allow that to be the way people access mentorship, things aren't going to change. So the entire principle behind Levo is you can expand and democratize success by making mentorship one-to-many, right? Enlisting incredible mentors like Warren Buffett or Sheryl Sandberg or Kevin Spacey, all of whom have done office hours on Levo, to share their advice with the community so that 7.6 million people can watch Warren Buffett instead of the one person who's fortunate enough to be in the room with him. And you can create one-to-one mentorship by allowing people to communicate with each other directly on the platform, and then many-to-many. So create vibrant communities where conversations that are really important are happening around key topics. And we're just around the corner from Equal Pay Day, so one such very important conversation is actually happening now around salary negotiation. When's the right time to ask? How do you ask? What if your manager says no, there's no salary left in the budget? Can you ask for more responsibility? Can you ask for more flexibility? Can you try to reach for that next step in your career? So mentorship is a very broad, very, very broad concept. And my goal and our goal at Levo is to make sure that we can make that more accessible for our entire generation of people.
So, and Caroline, just briefly, because we're short on time, but you say there needs to be 3 types of mentors at 3 stages of your career. Could you describe that?
Meaning the one-to-one, one-to-many, many-to-many?
Yeah.
Yes. So I would actually say you need all 3 throughout your career.
Okay.
So it's not enough to build one-to-one relationships with an incredible set of people who you click with and have chemistry with and believe you can learn from, because guess what? You might not meet those people right away. So fantastic if you do, more power to you. If you're in that 7%, I'm thrilled. But there are other areas where you can actually activate mentorship right away.
Right.
So on one-to-many, you can go to Levo. You can, I mean, the internet allows you to learn from these incredible people who you may never meet, and that's okay.
Right.
And then many-to-many, joining discussions with people who are experiencing the same pain point you are, and who you can learn with.
Right. So I wanted to turn the conversation a bit to this question of women losing confidence as they move forward in their careers. And of course, Accenture research has shown the impact for women's advancement when it comes to digital fluency, technological absorption, and of course, choice of career path. And then there's that sort of, you have found that there is some loss of confidence along the way, and I wonder whether the digital age helps that or hurts that. Ellyn?
Well, I mean, my opinion is that the digital age is going to dramatically help that, because it allows women to participate all over the world in ways that some women have not been able to participate either in the workforce or in one-to-many, many-to-many conversations. So I think digital is a great equalizer, and I think it's going to help accelerate, as the research said, many things, including gender pay equality, but also participation in the workforce.
And Maria, what do you think of that?
So I happen to suffer, apart from the fact that I'm coughing like crazy today, and I wasn't yesterday, so who knows. I think I got it from Ellyn. Yeah, she gave it to me over the phone earlier this week. I happen to be one of the people who suffer from the imposter syndrome. So,
it's unbelievable to me.
I think, well,
this woman is like a computer scientist, like the geekiest geek in the world, you know?
Yeah, but it's still true that
and a college president.
I get up every morning and I feel like a failure, okay? That's just the way my life is. And so one of the things I do at Harvey Mudd is and it did get worse as I got more senior. I mean, I didn't have this when I was 30. And now I'm 65, and I have it big time. But one of the things I use this particular experience for is to talk to our students about this on the first day of classes every year. Because one of the things, so it's a convocation ceremony, and we know that many of our incoming students who were, superstars in their high school are looking around and going like, I'm not sure I belong here. So I talk about the imposter syndrome, and I mentioned that many people may be already feeling that they're an imposter at Mudd. And then at some point, I will ask people to raise their hand if they're having this feeling. And so I'll say, raise your hand if you ever doubt yourself and feel like everyone thinks you're more successful than you actually are. This is a chance for you to do this. If anyone in the audience feels this way.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. So, and so one of the things I started noticing, so I've been doing this for maybe 8 years or so, is that the faculty started to raise their hands, which was so good for the students.
Yeah.
So this whole bit about losing confidence in yourself, I have a flip side on it, which is actually doubting yourself is a good thing, not a bad thing. I don't explain why. So if you feel like a failure, it's because you're setting your expectations for performance up here, and you're coming in like this. And so you're spending a lot of time looking at the difference between what you sought to achieve and where you got to. And the secret is that when you spend time doing that, your performance gets better. And people who which some men feel this way, just think that they rock. They're not paying attention to that. So what I tell our students and what I tell all of the people that I work with as either a sponsor or a mentor throughout my life is, doubting yourself is good, except for one thing. If it causes you not to lean in, not to be ambitious, not to take that risk, it's bad. So what I do is I allow there to be two voices in my head. There's the one here that says, oh, Maria, you just suck. And then there's the other one that says, Maria, you can change the world. And so what I try to make sure I do is I allow the lack of confidence to make me evaluate. It's like Sally Krawcheck was saying about the early stages of her career. She became a student of herself to see where she was being more successful and when she was being less successful. So I do that, and then I let the I can change the world voice make me go and stand up for what I believe in.
So Shailee, that's great advice, by the way. Thank you. And Shailee, I wonder, you had an internship where you were a tech internship where you were the only woman among 20 men. So were those two kind of messages going off in your head? But you ended up like trying to change the world, I think. Tell us about that.
Sure, yeah. So I think most of my life, I've never felt that women can do something men can do something that women can do. It just has never been a thought in my head. And I think that's been because of all the mentorship that I've received, all of the encouragement. When I would say, I want to dream big and do bigger, everybody would say yes. And I have 2 mentors sitting right here and maybe 2 more mentors right on the other side. For example, one of my first initiatives as student body president was free the tampon. I thought that we should provide pads and tampons in our restrooms for free. I email Maria, and she doesn't say, no, we can't do that. She says, yes, full speed ahead, let's figure this out. And it's this encouragement and mentorship that's really been helping. So I just never felt anything. And then I went to my first technical internship at Google, which I really, really enjoyed. But I was the only woman in my cubicle area of around 20 men. We're all software engineers. I was like, whoa, this feels a little bit weird. This is very different from Harvey Mudd. And of course, I grew up in Silicon Valley, so I had that dream, that entrepreneur spirit in me. So I was like, okay, we need to use this to make a difference. And so I launched a program called Women Empowered, or We++, where every week, over dozens of lunches and coffees, I would gather 4 to 5 women interns, and I would connect them to leaders across HR, engineering, legal, business operations, and we would have these small group conversations where we would hear about their stories, learn from their paths, get some mentorship and advice, so that thought in our head, the second one saying, Shailee, you're not good enough, you don't belong here, turns into a, yes, you belong here, yes, you value, yes, you're amazing, so dream big and do bigger. It just turned into that.
That is called leading in the new.
Indeed.
Can I just say one thing to all the Accenture people here? Many of you have heard me say we have to change our mindset in recruiting. We have to become worthy. We have to make ourselves worthy of attracting top talent. This is why. This is why. How lucky are we that Shailee chose us this summer to be our intern, and she's working with Sunny Webb and Mary Hamilton in the tech labs, 2 incredible women, so you won't feel lost in a sea of men, because there's a lot of women in the tech lab. But this is what I mean. We need to be worthy.
I'm so honored, thank you.
Caroline, speak to both the imposter syndrome and the sort of flagging confidence at various points of our career. It's interesting that Maria said she has less confidence at her age now than earlier. Should you seek out a different type of mentor at that point in your life?
Yes.
Okay.
So I love that you articulated these 2 different personas, because that's exactly what it is. There's these 2 different kinds of love. Fundamentally, there are types of love that kind of happen in your mind. One is, I'm good enough right now, and everything is great. And the other is, I'm not good enough yet. And the I'm not good enough yet, if that voice is the only voice in the room, the downside, they both have good parts and bad parts. The downside is that it can become an eroding force, and over time, it eats away at the core of what makes you feel confident, what makes you feel you. But there's a beautiful part to that, because when you feel I'm not good enough yet, it's because you have this really incredible future vision of who you could be. And that's something to be embraced and something to celebrate. So let's not shame that. Let's not make it an enemy. Let's instead just look around at why it's out of balance with its counterpart. So my advice is that we need to focus on strengthening this kind of love for ourselves. And I think that many of us as women are socialized not to nurture this part of ourselves and not to do that inwards. And so examples of that include just taking some time in every day. I mean, this is such a simple practice, but once I started doing it, I started feeling so much better. Take 2 seconds at the end of your day to write down 3 things that you think you did well today. Truly. And I know it sounds really simple, but when you look at that, you have this somatic reaction to what you've done well, and you start to be satisfied and grateful for the things that you're already excellent at. And that adds 1 coin to the piggy bank that's really important for you to be maintaining as well. Because many of us are extremely ambitious, and that means that this voice has been trained and armed, and it is really good. And so you've got to work on training and arming this one too, so that they actually collaborate as friends and as partners throughout your life, and you don't allow one to take over the driver's seat and kick the other out of the car. So that's just my sort of advice to you. I've been on this journey for many years, but happy to share more after the panel. But that's how I would conceptualize it in the simplest way.
So since we're running short of time, I'm going to take that note and run down the rest of the panelists. Leave us with a piece of advice for this audience. Maria, I'm going to start with you.
So I just want to clue you into the magic Post-it. So if you're feeling down, go to somebody who believes in you and have them write a Post-it that says, Maria is going to do just fine, and sign it. And then Maria takes it and puts it on her mirror and looks at it every single day.
Shailee, do you even have those feelings? No. You're young.
She doesn't know what we're talking about.
Yeah. What are you?
I don't think I can give advice, but I have more of a request.
Why don't you give
a
requests, but also you can give advice to people coming up behind you. I mean,
Yeah.
people.
Next president of ASHMEC.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
So in terms of requests, I would say, for me, the fact that I've had so many cheerleaders in my corner has made the world of a difference. This is starting from 6th grade when the mayor of Cupertino sat down for me for an hour to talk to me about the environmental activities I wanted to start. Like, that type of mentorship and cheerleading is so important. It's not that the ideas were coming from somewhere else, but it was just making me believe that I could do it. And so with these programs such as Women Empowered, where all it takes is about 30 minutes of your time to sit with 4 or 5 different women and just share your story and hear your thoughts, that can make a world of a difference. And because they will then feel empowered, they will make a world of a difference for you and the world too. So just, if you can take 15, 20, 30 minutes every week to have coffee or lunch, it can really change our lives. And then as for the advice, just don't sell yourself short. Dream big, do bigger. That's what I'm gonna say.
Okay, well, my advice is very simple. My advice is to find a best friend at work, because having a best friend at work can be the person that helps you talk yourself out of your head or helps you know that you need the good love. So find a best friend at work.
So I'm going to break protocol because I thought we were out of time because it told me we only had a couple minutes left, but it actually built in time for Q&A. Lucky you guys. We've got, unless this is a mistake. Okay. Checking. I mean, they were very firm that we're running over schedule, so I just want to make clear. So let's get some questions in here. We've got 8 minutes.
While the first question is teeing up, just for transparency, Maria, after this thing, did recruit me to the Harvey Mudd Board of Trustees, so that's how I know Maria and Shailee. And Karen Klein is also sitting in the front row and is a board member as well.
And I just want to say, being on the Harvey Mudd Board of Trustees is the coolest board assignment ever.
It is. It's really
Just
cool.
in case anyone here would like this wonderful opportunity, it only costs a little bit more than $50K a year to do it. But it's the best cost you could ever give money to.
It's awesome. Questions?
Hi, thank you. I think it's fantastic that, Maria, that you've been able to increase diversity at Harvey Mudd to such a great degree. As one of the women who kind of went through science and engineering programs feeling a little lonely, I think that's great. I'd love to hear some of the specifics of how you actually managed it, especially from a faculty standpoint, because that's pretty remarkable. And even in corporate America, we really struggle to achieve similar goals when, in theory, hiring in our world ought to be easier than in yours.
Thank you. So I'll talk about 2 pieces. One is about increasing the number of students and female students, and then increasing the number of female faculty. But they're synergistic. So for female students, we had to do basically 2 things. We had to get more women into just to come to Harvey Mudd. And so we did all the kinds of obvious things you'd think about. We made sure that every publication, the website, the photographs we hire on campus, the tour guides, the people who do the interviewing for prospective students are diverse, and in particular are gender balanced, but also are racially diverse. Then for 4 years, I wrote a handwritten card to every admitted female student because we had a lower yield on women than men who we admitted to the college, and we know that a personal approach has more impact on women than men. So it was about 300 cards a year. And then by 4 years, we'd actually managed to get up to equal yield. And I will say we went from being about 30%, 31% female up to about 46% female over a 5-year period. So it went relatively quickly. In terms of actually changing where the women wanted to think about majors, we knew that for computer science, one of the issues was that, it was our lowest participation of women. It was about 10% women in the major. And we knew that, so this is something I've worked on, done research on since about 1990. So had a lot of experience going into this. But also our CS department went and they read what had been done at the University of British Columbia, which is the work I led, and also at Carnegie Mellon, which was led by Jane Margolis and Alan Fisher. So they actually had a fair amount of data, and then they applied that to first of all, changing the introductory course that everyone takes to make sure that it was engaging and not intimidating. And if you've been in an intro CS class at most places, you know that there will be some students, usually sort of geeky males, and I'm married to a geeky male, and my oldest child is a geeky male, and I identify, as my daughter says, as a dork. So she, of course, is not a dork.
Is she a computer science person? Just curious.
She is doing peace negotiations in Africa with the top peace negotiation outfit in the world. And when she was 17, she said, Mom, the stuff you think you do in terms of getting more women into science and engineering, that's not important. I'm going to work on the really important problems of the world. And I said, so what's that? And she says, I'm going to work on peace, healthcare, et cetera, in the developing world. And there she is. So I said at that point, you go, girl. It's very impressive. Thank you. My son works in Manhattan and is the technical lead for the mobile information security team at Square. So he is a CS math geek, just like his parents. And I'm very proud of him, too. So to go back to what we did, we made the intro course non-intimidating. We made sure that we didn't have people who were dominating the airtime because they knew so much and intimidating the other students. We made it was just as rigorous and just as theoretical, but we added applications so you could see that what you were learning made a difference. We also started to take our first-year female students to the Grace Hopper Celebration of Women in Computing, early October, Orlando, an amazing thing. If you hadn't had this experience, it's incredible. We take 40 to 60 students a year so that they can see women who are enthusiastic, accomplished, passionate in tech. And it's an amazing thing. 8,000 women. Go see. Then we also gave them early research experiences and also talked companies into giving early internships because we know that starting in your having an early research experience increases retention than the major. And then finally, we realized that just having one great course is not enough. You have to persuade them to take the next course and then the next course. And we went from 10% to 40% women in 4 years. Okay, not hard, not expensive. Okay, faculty. The biggest thing about faculty is that you really have to educate your search committees on unconscious bias. Because, I mean, there's just so much research that shows that unless you do this well, we will underestimate the achievements of women and people of color and overestimate the achievements of men, especially white men. And so you have to learn how to recruit a diverse pool, how to interview effectively, because there's lots of things you can do in your interview that will screw it up, and then how to negotiate effectively. And that has had a huge impact in our ability not just to recruit women faculty, but also faculty of color.
So Ellyn, what is your big piece of advice to large tech companies, for example, or any large company, but especially large tech companies that haven't done a great job at diversifying? They walk the walk, but how do they, or they talk the talk, but how do you, what's your advice on walking the walk?
Yeah, I think there's what Maria was saying is exactly right. It's pervasive. There's no kind of one-size-fits-all approach. So you need to, if you're a company, you need to have the basics. You need to have the policies and programs, you know, what Julie's done here and with maternity leave and all the things that are baseline to make it a place where people can be equal. But then you have to take it down from the macro to the individual level very, very quickly, right? You know, you have to sit next to people like Shailee at dinner. You have to get to know them, be interested in who they are as a human being. And I know you said this at the beginning, but the one thing I never leave my home without is my heart. And so I think you need to make sure that you are transparent with people and that you're interested, let them know you're interested in them, not just professionally, but personally also. And that's what we call here at Accenture being truly human. And I think that is how you can really accelerate change. So do the basics, but then also make it personal.
So that's extremely good advice to women leaders inside Accenture too, people who, and when you're building your team and managing a team.
Yeah.
Well, we are out of time. So I want to thank all of our panelists. It's been an incredible discussion. They'll be around later. Thank you.